I think the last time we spoke was the Pokemon trivia, right? I think that was the last thing.
Yeah, still recovering.
And yeah, how what did you think of that experience?
It was awesome, dude. I was super impressed by what you put together. That was really, really fun. Like, it's so creative. It was really good. And it's like always a struggle whenever I do something like that and I succeed at it. The amount of knowledge that I have on a certain topic that is not necessarily useful to me, that I'm like, I feel like I should be reevaluating my life, that I could win anything like this. But it was awesome.
I mean, I remember a comment you made that you were like, oh, I read Pokédex entries on stream. Was it on stream or something? Or you just like had read like a lot of Pokédex entries?
Yeah, I had done it on stream because I try to do the original Pokédex voice as often as I can.
Oh, okay.
Because it's fun.
Yeah, that Charmander. You know, that
Exactly.
voice of the... Yeah, gotcha, yeah.
Yeah, how long did it take you to make? I think I might have asked you that, but it has to have been hard.
That was a COVID project, so
yeah.
It was... So there's about 9 different separate, like, what do you call it? Installments. But the first one... I don't know, like, I feel... During those times, I would just, like, spend all night working on something for fun, because I was like, well...
What else am I going to do?
Yeah. Exactly, right? So, I have no estimate on how long it took, but probably, like, a night or two to, like, really solidify how it worked. For those of you listening, the Pokemon trivia, long story short, is, like, people get moves, all the moves are different things, there's a move for every move in the games, and then they can use the moves during the rounds where they answer questions and get points and things like that. So yeah, it just kind of stemmed from boredom. A friend of mine started Mario trivia, and then I did my own Mario trivia, and I was like, I kind of want to make like an expansive like version of this. So I just took everything I loved about Pokemon and engineered it into the trivia format. But,
yeah, no, it's awesome. It's a cool of you to create something during the pandemic that other people can also enjoy.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What have you been up to lately? And if you have spare time?
Not a ton of spare time.
Sure.
I mean, listen, I'll be honest. Like, as we speak, I am just thinking about Sifu a lot.
Okay.
Really enjoying playing that game. But yeah, I mean, I run like
Sifu. What is Sifu?
Oh, the video game. It's from Slow Clap. It's actually a French studio who made a Chinese game, which has been controversial. But
someone mentioned this the other day.
Yes.
Oh, okay. This is like a beat 'em up?
Well, yeah, it's super interesting. It's, I mean, yeah, I guess, but it's very, like, it's Hotline Miami-esque. Sorry, Hotline Miami. I said Hotline Miami. Hotline Miami-esque because I combined it in my brain with Hitman. In a way that you will have to replay levels to try to perfect them, to try not to die at all in the levels. And the end goal, I guess, is probably I'm going to try and get through the whole game without dying at all. And it's hard. So that's definitely a challenge. So it's like learning where weapons are and who, like what enemy is in what area and how you need to prioritize attacking people and what skills you need to buy and where. I'm very, very into it, which, you know, I'm glad. It's like one of those games I was very excited about. And so whenever I am as hyped about something that I was excited about, it's a good day. It's a good day.
Nice.
So really enjoying it. So that's what I'm doing with all my spare time right now. But I don't know. I have like way too many podcasts. I think I'm doing 4 podcasts at this point, and obviously my day job at Sony Santa Monica Studio. So that takes me up to 6 p.m. And then just do a whole bunch of stuff afterwards. It's the existence of any kind of content creator these days is wearing a million hats, I think. Sure. We all do.
Now, I guess I'm curious kind of like about your sort of journey online, because I know you were at IGN, you were at Rooster Teeth along the way, but let's say before quote unquote you were known or whatever, what were your sort of aspirations back then?
My whole life I loved 2 things, which is video games and writing.
Okay.
Definitely credit Pokemon for getting me into video games, and just the N64 in general when I was, I don't know, 6 or 7. But I was also like writing books from the minute I could write. I was one of those kids who really enjoyed doing homework, liked doing assignments. So it was always those two things. And it didn't really occur to me that it was possible for me to marry them as a career until I was working this job that I hated in a call center right after high school. And I was trying to basically write books at that point in time for the most part. I did already have a blog where I did some game review stuff just for fun, but that wasn't anything I was pursuing. And I saw a job listing for a gaming news writer as a volunteer. And I was like, oh my God, I could totally do this. So I basically threw everything that I could at it. And then went to university to study journalism and entertainment writing, a Bachelor of Mass Communication, with the intention of being like, cool, I'm going to marry these two things together, and that's what I'm going to do. So I started out in Australia writing for magazines and really small websites, and then slowly worked my way up. And then when I was like, okay, if I really want to do this and I want to make the games industry my whole life, I need to move to the US. So I focused on trying to figure out how to get a job at either IGN or GameSpot, which is obviously really hard to do when you're international because you have to get a visa. And to get a visa, you have to have an insane resume. So at that point, I was like, okay, I recognize that to be able to do this and to be as employable as possible, I need to work on camera. I also took a photography class to learn how to do photojournalism properly. And I volunteered on community radio. So I was working on national radio in Australia and national TV and doing all this stuff to just like get to the US to be in the games industry, basically. At the same time, I ended up transferring the last 6 months of my degree to California, so that I could at least like start meeting people and going to events and stuff while I was still freelance writing. So did all that at the same time, succeeded in getting a job at IGN, took like 6 months for them to get me my visa because it's so complicated. And then once I was there, I was hired as a writer. So I was the toys and culture editor, which overlapped really well with just a lot of other stuff that I was interested in, which is like I did a lot of toy coverage and I've always had a big collection of toys. I did cosplay coverage and I used to cosplay, and I did some science stuff, and I also used to write science news. So I was doing science writing as well as all the gaming stuff around that.
Sure.
And then it kind of got to a point where I'd been at IGN for several years and was like, wow, I did this. This is this thing that I really wanted to do. But I was writing a lot of fiction in my spare time regardless. And eventually it was ultimately just that like I stopped feeling like I had anything to learn at IGN. Like it was awesome. There were a lot of great things about working there. And my favorite thing about working there was always talking to game devs and going to game studios and making like mini documentaries. Yeah. So I ended up being like, okay, clearly nobody stays in games media forever. Clearly the next goal for me is that I want to write a video game. So I went to Rooster Teeth, and I was pretty blatant with them about it, effectively as a gateway to get more creative writing experience, because Rooster Teeth obviously does animation and they do video games and they do movies and they do like comedy sketch shows and all that stuff that I did get to write on a little bit, so that I built up more of that like as a professional portfolio, where previously it was something that I was only doing as a hobby. And then started doing game jams in my spare time, did some volunteer writing for indie studios, even sometimes just people that I found on Kickstarter. Like all of that was basically the same way that I entered the games media side was what I did with the games writing side. And then kind of lucked out in that I knew that if I wanted to work in AAA, which I didn't really care about, I was happy to start really wherever, that I would need to get a junior writer position, which feels so weird when you've been writing for like 7 years professionally already, but that is the nature of the industry. So I very much got lucky when one of my favorite studios that have a lot of people that I had kind of worked with a little bit before, which is Santa Monica Studio, had a junior writer position open, that they were effectively like headhunting for. I believe they interviewed a number of people, but I don't think it was publicly listed at that point, which is obviously massively beneficial as well. So I went for that, interviewed with 1 million people, sent all my samples and screenplays and short stories and all that stuff that I had written, as well as some scripts that I had written for other studios. And here I am. That's the short version.
For me, it looks like the through line has just been you knew what you wanted to do and you just fucking level ground to get to that point.
Pretty much.
Just like, yeah, like even, telling like when you're going to Rooster Teeth, like, this is what I want. I think that's actually very impressive and important, that, you knew exactly what you kind of wanted to go for.
Yeah, it
and
makes
what experiences
it kind of
you
tough
wanted
to
get
give
along the way.
people advice sometimes, though, because like I just always knew So it was
Sure.
very easy for me to map out the path to be like, here's what I think I need to do exactly to get to this thing. Whereas I know a lot of people like don't have that luxury. So people are like, I want to work in the games industry, but I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, well, you got to figure that out first. Otherwise, I do not know how to help you.
Yeah. I think a lot of people just sort of generalize. Like, I know I want to do something related to this, but it's like, do you know exactly what you want to do? That can be what
Totally
is an obstacle for people.
Totally. I mean, how did you get started in voice acting, if you don't mind me asking?
Voice acting for me, I mean, I knew from like high school I wanted to do it. So I don't know how familiar you are with my online background, but the long story short is basically I started a Tumblr back in like 2012, 2013. And this was right fresh out of college. I was like, I want to get into voice acting. I have no idea how to do that, but I know the only way to do it is just start practicing and getting better. So I made that Tumblr with the intention of doing one audio post a day, and I did that for like 4 or 5 years.
No way.
Not stopping, literally every day.
Wow.
I never took a break. That eventually helped not only me to get better, but it built up an audience. This was before, at the time nobody knew who I was, and then it just kind of grew from there. So
I mean, that's not that dissimilar, right? Like, you knew exactly what you wanted to do, and you had an action plan for several years to do it.
Yeah, I mean, action plan is generous, because I was like, I still have no fucking idea. But what I've realized is a lot of this industry is just making the connections and networking and getting people to know who you are.
Absolutely.
So even if at the time I didn't know I was on the right track, a lot of people were also doing similar things to me, like, making stuff online, like showcasing their talent, like, so for me it was just practicing, making stuff, putting it out there. Because before then I would work on stuff, but I wouldn't have the discipline. I'd be like, but nobody's watching this, nobody's listening. I don't feel like making another thing. I'm gonna take a break or whatever. Whereas the intention of the Tumblr was, I don't care if anybody's watching or listening or not. Just do this once a day and you will get better. And I did, exponentially.
Do you ever go back and listen to the first stuff that you made?
Oh, I can't do it.
I have trouble with my first videos too. I was never good on camera. I learned how to be good on camera, but it's not something that I think any writer is ever naturally good at. I don't even feel like I'm that great at it now. I'm like still pretty boring. Like, I get so many YouTube comments of people like, you're so low energy. I'm like, yeah, I know that I probably don't perform enough for this platform. But I was so bad.
I like people like that who don't feel the need to like put on a show.
I also way prefer to watch it, but I do recognize that it is not the means to success on YouTube, which thankfully is not like a thing I'm chasing, but I'm like actively aware that a good 70% of people who find my videos are going to be like, wow, you're really like low energy. I'm like, correct.
Well,
I am.
I've managed that way so I think it's okay.
It's true. Our energy is not dissimilar.
Yeah, I really don't give a shit about being the whoa that guy. I don't give a shit, but
but it's funny because I've seen you do that. It's just as a character.
As a character.
Yes.
Oh, as a character, it's a very different thing.
That's true.
But as me, I don't care.
Big
now,
thing.
do you remember the first thing you got paid to write? Like, this was your first professional gig, or like?
Yes. Let me see if I can still find it. The first, so it took, like, I was freelancing. Oh, sorry, freelancing is the wrong word. I was doing stuff for free for years before I ever ended up getting paid for anything. I don't think it's still on there. So the first thing that I got paid to write was a review for a website called Game Arena, which is an Australian website that was run by Telstra, which is one of our biggest phone providers. And it looks like it's disappeared from the internet, unfortunately. The first one that I remember being like super proud of, though, was a magazine in Australia. I did Company of Heroes 2 review. And the reason that I remember like that one feeling like a real feat was because that was the point where my grandma understood like previously.
Like what you did.
Well, what I was trying to do at least, because like when I started, I had no money because, I wasn't making any money. I was doing all this stuff for free to try to build up a portfolio while I was studying at university. And I was spending all of my money to fly from Brisbane, which is where I'm from, to Sydney, which is where all the gaming events are in Australia. It would be like how San Francisco or LA are for video games, but you live somewhere else in America. So like I was spending all my money on flights to make sure I was, like you said, meeting people, was in the room. And that it is such an important part of it. And so I had absolutely no money ever. And any like freelance money that I got was going towards making sure that I could go to more events and meet more people and like get more engrossed in the industry. And I had to pay rent even though I was living at home because my parents also didn't have a ton of money. So it was like, I just had absolutely no goddamn money. And I had this part-time job at EB Games, which is just called GameStop here. I think it's
GameStop here.
It's just the same company.
Yeah.
So I was spending all that money on it as well. And like my family were like, you've won awards for writing. Like you've been good at this your whole life. This is a thing that, you were always really good at school. Why is nobody paying you? And it was difficult for them to rationalize that I wasn't being taken advantage of, even though I was like, no, I understand what I have to do to make this work. My grandma did not. She was like super poor family where she had to drop out of school to get a job when she was like 15. And so she's like, what do you mean you're working for free and flying across the country to do it? This doesn't make sense. But then I got in that print magazine and she was like, you're in the print.
Yeah, I can hold it in my hands and read it. Okay.
The words have been
now it's
printed.
real.
So she like just understood it. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, I can do this. And then my first significant paycheck was when I was about 21, because I think I started when I was like 17. It was like as soon as I was out of high school, I was like, let's fucking go. I had the blog where I was talking about games from when I was about 15 or so. And my first significant paycheck was I did a little bit of hosting for Xbox Australia, and I worked with them for a good couple of years. And I bought the first Four Figures statue of Darunia from Ocarina of Time. Because it felt to me like a full circle of like, this is a game that's so like emblematic of the era that I got into video games. And then the fact that I feel like I played that game and all these other games at this point in time led me to what I get to do today. So I have such a sentimental look at that particular Darunia statue. Also, he's just a big cutie,
Yeah, Darunia is great.
Cutie.
Do you still have that statue?
I sure do. It is in Australia though, because I have not figured out how to safely transport it here. Maybe one day.
And when did you make the like move over here, like sort of permanently, I guess?
Yeah, so I did the first 6 months was university, and was again the same thing that I had already done. So like I had to make sure I got especially good grades to be eligible for the exchange program. So I was focusing on that, and then transferred over for 6 months on a J1 visa, which is like a student visa. And, same thing, went to games industry events, tried to meet people in the US. And then I got offered the job at IGN when I was on the J1 visa. And so they had to refile my visa to the O1 visa, which is what I'm on now. And that just like I said, took like 6 months. It's such a terrible process. It's awful. Okay. Takes so long. And so I had to go back to Australia while I waited for about 6 months. So I officially moved on... it's like November 23rd, 2015. And I've been here ever since.
Nice. Total pivot in topic,
Excellent.
But you mentioned a toy collection. So I gotta know. So what, like, when we're talking toy collection, is there like all toys or specific types of toys? What are we talking here?
So when I got hired for the job at IGN, it was really everything. Would just get all the video game collector's editions that I could get my hands on. I had a massive Dragon Ball collection that I have mostly not ported over here, which is very upsetting to me. I had this like huge Assassin's Creed collection, which I no longer care that much about, but that's still at home somewhere too. Yeah, a lot of Pokemon, a lot of Zelda. But in terms of like toy manufacturers, I didn't have any specific preference, whereas like I still have a big toy collection now, but it's kind of like shifted to a different style. So I mostly now have like first full figures. I have a lot of the Batman Black and White line. I have some Prime 1 XM Studios. So I tend to now go for statues rather than toys. And I think that's like partly because they're more expensive pieces, and I look at like the toys that I have as art at this point.
Yeah.
But it's
yeah,
also
yeah.
that so many action figures fall over. And when you have a lot of them and one of them falls over and the whole shelf falls over.
And they all fall over,
I
yeah.
just got real sick of it. I got sick of the
I see.
dominoes. So yeah, but it's a lot of stuff. I'm not going to lie to you. I have a lot of stuff. I actually wrote it in my will that if I die, my mom must prominently display the Death Stranding baby somewhere in her house. It must be publicly visible, and I hope that if I die, that is on it.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I feel good about it.
Do you have a prize like out of your collection? This is the prize jewel of that collection.
There are a couple. I have this Daniel Arsham Charmander, which has like actual crystal in it. And it's
I don't Daniel Arsham. What is that?
Arsham. I'll send you the link. Daniel Arsham Charmander. It is a beautiful piece and is absurdly expensive. Here you go. I'll send you the link. It's pretty incredible. So I'm a big fan of that one. And mine is like a pinky color. He has a white one as well. So I love that thing. But I'm really partial to some of the first full figure stuff. Like I have their King of Red Lions, which has like waves underneath it that light up. And I just managed to rig a whole bunch of my light up collectibles to smart lighting. I did this like maybe a couple of weeks ago. So now when it hits 5 p.m., all the lights go on. So like I have the Majora's Mask statue from them, which is huge.
Ooh,
and now the lights turn on. So everything goes
Yeah.
on at 5 p.m. and off at 2 a.m. And I'm so happy with it. Like every time I walk past and I see all the lights on, it's like I've got a Kirby that lights up. That Death Stranding baby lights up. I have like a BioShock statue that lights up. So they like all the lights just, it's so good. But yeah,
So
I love the King
They're
of
all
Red
just
Lions.
grouped together then.
Yeah, they're all on just like a bookshelf together. I try to theme my shelves, but I don't have them scattered all throughout the house. The office that I'm in right now is mostly like God of War stuff because I spend most of my time doing Santa Monica Studio stuff in here. So a lot of God of War stuff in here.
Did you by any chance do a King of Red Lions unboxing video?
Yes, for IGN, I think.
Because I was looking up the statue and I see you.
Yeah,
I'm
that
like,
makes sense. Oh yeah,
Okay,
there I am. How weird.
Yeah. I was like, wow. So speak of the devil. Well,
that is the one. Yeah, that's the one on the shelf. I took that exact one.
That is a nice.
It's beautiful. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, it rules. It's gorgeous.
God damn. Okay. So obviously you love games and, all that shit, but are there like hobbies or interests you have that people don't necessarily know, like at first glance? Or are you just like putting all your, because I have friends who are like, they put all their chips in games, which I respect. I respect that a bunch. But I'm wondering if you have any hobbies that are like, I don't talk about this that often, but it's still pretty.
I have a lot of trouble not monetizing everything that I do, which I recognize is like a part of living in California. Probably everything's expensive. So I do have other hobbies. I'm still trying to reckon with putting more time into them because I have this like shitty guilt of if I do something for myself and I'm like, but I should be producing content for the machine. So the one thing that I feel like I speak about the least that I've been doing more often is climbing. I just go rock climbing by myself at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I work out all the time. That's something that is like not necessarily super interesting, but I'm a big fan of weightlifting. It's something I've been doing for years and I definitely really enjoy it. Rock climbing, super rewarding, really enjoy it. You can totally do it by yourself, even though most people probably do it with friends. So I try to like, as somebody who's sitting in front of a computer all day, actually exercise where possible. And yeah, I've been learning guitar as well. So probably the big ones. But
as someone who has never rock climbed before, so where are you going? Like, are you just find a cliff? Like, what? I don't know anything about rock climbing. I wish
I was that cool. No, it's their indoor climbing gyms.
Oh, indoor rock climbing.
Yeah,
okay,
but it's like it looks like what you're used to seeing kids do, but they're hard.
Yeah.
People get really good.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I feel like going alone
No,
outside.
that's a bad idea.
That's a bad idea. Seems like a bad idea. But okay, that makes more sense. Again, that to me, I'm so know nothing about rock climbing.
I feel like I should have specified that. That's maybe on me.
The only way you can rock climb is outside, right?
On rocks. No, you made the logical conclusion. I feel like it's not your fault.
What's the highest you've climbed in your rock climbing career?
I don't know. So it's limited to the size of the gyms in terms of height. But what they do is different gyms have different colors. So you see a rock wall and there's a bunch of reds and a bunch of purples and a bunch of blacks and a bunch of whites or whatever. Different gyms have different difficulties tied to the colors. So like, I feel like it's really common that red is an easy one. So you can just, go and climb it up. But when you're getting into like a purple wall, that is you hanging upside down.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Or sometimes trying to jump like an extra meter, but with just your arms. So your legs are just dangling. I'm not strong enough to do that, but that's the goal, is to like be able to do pull-ups, but jump at the same time. Like they get super complicated. So it's not necessarily about the height, because I'm not doing the kind of rock climbing that is like assisted, where they have you strapped in.
Yeah.
It is free form, but it's more about the difficulty increasing based on, they call them architects or sometimes engineers, the puzzle builders who come in and like build the wall puzzles, because they fully are puzzles. You're like, how am I going to get from this red rock to this red rock? Should I move my foot there? Or because you're also not allowed to touch different colors. It's and there are like people who are famous for building like very intricate or elaborate puzzles. And sometimes like a cool thing about going to a climbing gym is watching other people figure it out. Like it's kind of like a collective puzzle thing, and you're like, oh, that's how they got over there. Interesting. I'm going to try that and see if I can do it. So they get pretty elaborate.
This is actually fascinating to me. So you're saying there's like red rocks. Is it like, oh, this wall has all red rock footholds and you climb up that, or are they all mixed up?
They're always mixed. But you can only touch the red.
Okay, so it's like a whole jumble of holds, but if you're doing red, you can only grab red.
Correct.
And if you're doing purple,
yeah. And some of the harder ones, the grips they give you, you couldn't even fit your whole hand over it. It's just like your fingertips.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the people who are really good at it, like start doing in their spare time, like hand strengthening exercises to make sure that their hands are strong enough for them to be able to grip. And I usually, when I go, I have to stop at the point where my hands get weak, because they've just given up before anything else. It's like my hands just turn to jelly and I'm like, I can't grip anything anymore. And that depends on like, obviously the amount of runs you're doing at any given time. But that's the point where it's like, my hands just can't take it. That quits before anything else.
So what is the highest difficulty you've done?
I'm like third from the hardest. And I'll get there, but it's definitely upper body strength is what's holding me back at this point. And there's definitely always a little bit of fear too when you're doing the harder runs and you can feel your arms like turning to jelly, and you're like, even if it's not far to fall, you totally will get scared of falling. Get there.
Even though you're like, well, because you're wearing like a harness thing, or you're not even wearing a harness?
Not wearing a harness, no. Usually nothing, like no helmets or anything. They just, you have climbing shoes, which are shoes that have hard tips and little points on the end. And you'll usually have a chalk bag, so you can put chalk on your hands so that you're a little bit more grippy.
So you just fall down on a mat or something.
Yeah.
Still sounds terrifying to me.
Totally. It is scary. I've never seen anybody get seriously injured in any way, but like it's totally scary.
Wow. Okay. I'm learning a lot about rock
Nobody's
climbing.
ever asked me any questions about it before. It's actually kind of nice.
This is the kind of shit I like learning about, when, because I look at a rock wall, climbing wall, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's just, you can just
club some
I
rocks.
had no idea the colors were like different difficulties. That's like so interesting to me. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like when I figured out that there were, so some gyms will have like the expert, rock wall builders come in from around the world, or they'll have them in remote, like this guy's from France and he built this wall. Like there are people who are like esteemed for making cool puzzles in rock walls, and people get excited to have them build a wall at their gym.
Is there like an infamous either rock wall or rock wall gimmick that like, oh, like this type of, like you said,
This
mentioned earlier, the
classic
jumping
move.
ones or the upside down ones? Is there one that's like, oh, this is like hardcore?
The
this
ones
is like
that
the toughest
I
shit.
won't do, that I like will just look at and be like, hell no. There are these particular kinds of holds that are just like basically circular. There's no like actual place to grip your fingers in. They're just big circles. So it'd just be like, you know, you holding a cylinder. I find them way too scary. And sometimes the whole wall will just be cylinders, which means you have to like grip with your hands on both sides of just a cylinder. And it's so easy to slip. I won't do them. I'm out. Too scary.
Damn.
Maybe one day.
That is that's sick. Okay. Well, thank you for enlightening me on rock climbing.
I got you. Didn't expect to do that tonight. Anytime.
Yeah. Now, I like to give the guests the opportunity. Is there a question you'd like to ask me or a topic you'd like to bring up? And if not, don't worry about it. But if there's anything.
I know that you review board games. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I don't know a whole lot about because, like I said before, I have this like big trouble with not monetizing all of my hobbies. So what do you feel like for someone who I'm very into fantasy and I don't have a lot of time and I'm scared of like, I get scared of all the board games that require me to learn the rules for 4 hours before playing them. What's the best gateway for me to start getting into board games?
And you want fantasy games in particular?
I do really like fantasy. You don't need to answer with fantasy, but I'm a big fan.
No, I like knowing what the interests are. I can kind of veer towards that. Here's a question then: are you planning on playing these solo or like with a couple people, or is it like, you know, there's different experiences, right? Group of 4.
Like there's one game that I played not too long ago. I think it's called maybe Dead of Winter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. Not fantasy, obviously. But that's a game that I was playing because the person I was playing with knew the rules, so it was accessible. Whereas I'm trying to like play with myself sustainably, and that I can be the guy who brings this board game to everybody. You know?
How interested are you in, say, like a campaign game where like you play with the same group and you play it over like, I don't know, 8 to 10 sessions? It's like a continuing story.
My concern is the time.
Okay. So you want something a little, not necessarily like, more like I can bring this out every now and then. It's not like something I have to commit to.
Yeah, something I can finish in like maybe 1 or 2 sittings.
Okay. And fantasy-ish, and you don't want the rules to be super dense.
Correct.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Dead of Winter. Mm-hmm. I did just play a really fun game called Forgotten Waters, which is a pirate-themed game. And it's by the same publisher as Dead of Winter. And it's basically a game where you and your friends are a pirate crew. And it's like it's kind of like choose your own adventure mixed with like skill checks. You're like rolling dice to see if you can do certain things correctly, and you're trying to not die. And an app runs the game. It's fully voice. I'm in it. But
convenient.
Yeah, but even if I wasn't in it, it's still I was like, because I hadn't played it. This came out maybe a couple years ago, and then they sent me a copy, but I hadn't played it. But then like all the board game, it was getting a lot of buzz. I was like, oh shit, maybe I should check it out. And then I finally played it like a month ago, finally, and I really enjoyed it. Like,
app
that's one
walks you through the rules.
It's the app.
That's cool.
The app does a lot of the work for you because it's like you don't really need a lot of rule reading. Like a lot of it is pretty straightforward once you get going. Because it's a lot of like, all right, you choose this, I'll choose this, you choose this, and then we do them. And it just roll dice and do things, and you get like perks. So that's one that comes to mind because it's the same publisher as Dead of Winter, but much lighter. Like Dead of Winter is pretty dense.
Yeah.
Like, but Forgotten Waters, I think, is very easy to just kind of jump into
look it
after up. Like, yeah. So that one's really good. One that also comes to mind is like, you ever heard of like Zombicide?
I have.
Zombicide's fun. That's just classic rolling a bunch of dice to kill a bunch of zombies. I recommend Black Plague, which is the medieval one. That one is very
Forgotten
fun.
What is like the art is really cool. It looks neat.
Yeah, the art's really good. It's just a really good overall design, and
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
yeah, yeah. Let me know what you think if you do play it.
Is there a go-to for purchasing? Like, I try to avoid buying things on Amazon these days if I can get it from somewhere else. Is there like a go-to?
This one's Plaid Hat. So let's see. Do they still sell it
I see
directly?
something. Oh yeah, I see Plaid Hat.
Ooh, it's unavailable currently.
Oh, you're right. It is.
I would say maybe at your friendly local game shop. If it's not there, you know,
if I have to go Amazon, I will.
If you have to do Amazon, yeah, I get that sentiment though.
Just try to buy from other people where I can. Yeah, this looks really cool.
Yeah, so there's one. The Zombicide games are solid, and if I had to do one more recommendation, in a similar vein, you ever play Mansions of Madness?
I have not.
Mansions of Madness is another game that's kind of cooperative adventure. An app runs it. This one's more like Cthulhu themed, you know, so it's like kind of like horror Cthulhu, but you and your party are going through like either a mansion or a town, but the app, you know, runs it for you. So it tells you like put this tile down and flip this card, and it's kind of this. That game in Forgotten Waters is like a nice mix of, it's like almost video game adjacent, but it still gives you the feel of like, you know, classic tabletop, you know, experience. Because that way it really cuts down on the complexity for the players while still keeping the fun of it, everything that's fun intact. So
we used to do these board game days at IGN, and Funhouse does a couple of board game shows. So I played them again. I've just never been able to present one to a group, which is what I love to do. But I've enjoyed every board game I've played. What do you think makes a bad board game?
Bad board game. First off, even before the game, bad rule books can really make a game suffer.
Yeah.
If and I've read my share of bad rule books. Do you know offhand how many games? Like, do you know how many games I've played in my life?
A lot? I would think a lot.
Take a guess.
Okay, based on the reviews, I would guess 500.
More.
Oh my god. I thought that was like generous. 1,000?
1,059 as of
the
recording
god.
of this.
Wow.
I go fucking hard.
Clearly.
Yeah. So I've read a lot of bad rule books in my time. That's one.
Bad
I would say
in like unclear.
Unclear, obtuse, not doesn't describe the rules in a good order.
Yeah, they haven't had somebody edit them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think a lot of rule books, they need to just read it, like actually use the rule book into like an audience and see them, watch them. I don't think
like
a lot of them have done that.
Or pay somebody, you know, like just there's so many. Like even games that can do that wrong, that have bad UIs, and you're like, you just had to pay an editor. You would have been fine. Right. They could have told you all of this.
Exactly. So a bad game. Also, if the core gameplay engine isn't fun on its own, which sounds obvious, but a lot of games try to go for more like, oh, it needs to be thematic, or oh, it needs to like have more complex rules. But if they burden it with too much clutter and the core of the game isn't fun on its own, that can be a big detriment. If a game overstays its welcome, regardless of complexity, even like the lightest party game, if it's like, hey, you got to get 10 wins to win or something, it's like, I don't want to play this game for like 5 hours.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that can be a big,
especially if it's not adding anything. Obstacle. I mean, same as video games, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of video games are filled with filler. You know, that can be a big problem. Like for me, the best games are like games that are just the core mechanics are deeply satisfying. Where you're like, I don't care if I care if I win, but even if I don't win, I'm having a good time. The game is just fun to play. It's fun to play.
Take that, Monopoly.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think a lot of stuff gets burdened with either overly complex, forgetting the essence of fun, and taking too long. Because I'll play a long game. Like I've played a game that's like 10 hours long.
Hmm.
But if it was fun all the way through, like there have been games I played there, like it was like 5 hours, right? Which is not short. But we all go, oh shit, that did not feel like
It was
5
quick
in
5
a good
hours.
way.
Yeah. What's the longest?
We had a
longest you've ever
blast. Probably like 10, 11 hours, like maybe like a Through the Ages. That's a very long game. Also, another thing that some games can struggle with is scaling, where like, oh, it plays really well with 2, but you play with 4 and it's a nightmare, like because it just quadruples in length and you're just waiting way too long for people's turns.
Is balance a common problem? Like if things are like, you know, if there are factions and things are just stacked against you, I feel like surely that's a thing that would be hard.
That's definitely an issue in some games too. I think most games are good about that, especially if they're asymmetric, because they know that's something people are going to look out for.
Do you have any pet peeves, like things that drive you nuts if a board game does it?
One that comes to mind is if your game has a lot of, let's say there's like a turn structure to a round, and you don't offer like a little guide card, it's like, why not? Like, there's no reason not to do that. Most games, the default courtesy is, hey, here's a little cheat sheet card for each player that just describes all your actions you can do and the order structure of the round. So you don't have to like, wait, give me the rule book. What is it again? You know, you just look at the card. It's such an easy thing to provide, and it's kind of like, you know, at this point, like the standard. Most games will give you that. And if they don't, then then put it on the board or something. It's either on a cards or print it on the board itself. And if it's nowhere and you got to look at the fucking rule book every time, I'm like, this is...
I don't think I've ever played anything that doesn't have that, so I can completely understand why that would feel like a missing piece.
Yeah, there's no reason not to. So that's one pet peeve. Again, bad rule books I mentioned can just be absolute nightmares. Otherwise, I don't know. The thing is, I love all games, so I'm willing to play super simple, super complex, all themes. I'll try anything. But yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, it's a trap that a lot of like lighter games fall into is they overstay their welcome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, this is fun for like 30 minutes to an hour, but the way your game is set up, it takes like 2 hours and I don't want to play anymore.
I think lots of video games do that too. I wonder if like with board games, it's a thing of, well, but people won't buy it if it's not long enough. If it's only 30 minutes, it's not valuable. So they try to inflate the length.
I don't think so, because I think the sweet spot for a short game is one of those, let's play again. You know what I mean?
True.
Like if a game is like really fun and it takes about 20, 30 minutes, then you're going to want to play like 5 games of it.
It's a good
like,
point.
Hey, another round. If it takes a little too long, I think it's just an oversight in design, because they just don't take into account just how long it might take to actually play. Because if a game is like too long, but it's not interesting enough for its length, you play it and go, yeah, I'm good. I don't want to play that again.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So that can also be an issue for me. But yeah, for me, the board game, that's where I've put in a lot of my free points. I play much less video games. I still will, but it's much less than I used to.
Do you have like a crew of people that you're always playing board games with? Because that's the thing that also gets me is like, how do you consistently get people to play with you?
I do have a list. Yes,
people you call upon.
Yeah, pretty much. Just like I just like pull up. Hey, you want to play? I mean, if you're interested, I don't know how interested you are.
Oh, you do them remotely?
I
don't know where you live. Where do you live in LA?
I live in LA.
I didn't know. I just assumed that you didn't for whatever reason.
Oh no, yeah, I live here.
I mean,
I'd
love to try. Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Call upon me.
Cool. I would if for me, I love, showing new people the way. Like the more people I can snare into the hobby, the better. And what's been good for me is it's not only enriched existing friendships, but I also meet a lot of people through it. It's a nice way to meet people. Like if someone's like, "Oh, you like games? Let's play a game sometime." That can be a lot of fun too. So yeah. I'll, if you're interested, we should play sometime.
Totally, yeah. Love to.
Now,
I think that's the main thing about like if you want to introduce people to it is you have to be willing to teach them and like have them be slow and figure stuff out and whatever.
Yeah, for me, I take pride, and I think I'm pretty good at breaking down the rules. I'm always the guy who has the rule book and is going through it, teaching everybody.
Yeah.
And choosing what I think is like a good game for the right group.
Yeah.
Because games can vary so wildly in complexity that, you can scare people off, right? If you bring, a super dense game to people who either don't have the patience or, the willpower, they're gonna be like, oh, board games, they're they suck. They're too a miserable experience. You want to make sure it's as good for everybody.
That's what happens when you try to play with all your jock friends, and then they just beat you up afterwards.
Yeah, all my jock friends, they just wedgie me, and yeah, it's a real issue. Now, kind of going back to sort of like hobbies and that sort of thing. Is there something that you are like you're interested in, but you haven't actually started yet? But you're like, ooh, it could be fun to do blank. Like
I want to make music for sure. I want to make music. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been a DJ for about a decade, and it's something I haven't done because of the pandemic, obviously. And it's like that's really fun. It's just something that's very, very fun. It's not like it's complex, just mixing two tracks together. But it is a good time figuring out like how to make a crowd of people have fun and what they'll dance to and getting them to successfully. And I would love to try my hand at. I'd probably make synthwave. Like if you know Perturbator, probably something like that would be the style I would go for. Big fan of The Weeknd's latest album though as well, because it combines synthwave with pop in a way that I feel like is super interesting. And that's on the list. It's like a thing that I'm like, I will do this eventually when I have the time.
So what are the if we're going back to kind of steps, what are the steps towards that? Like, do you have the equipment for it, or is that like a step you need to take, or like what are like the next couple steps towards that hobby?
I do have a keyboard and can play a bit of piano. And that certainly helps. I mean, the step that I have taken is I just reached out to a friend who already makes music and was like, "Can you teach me how to do this?" And so I have done that part, which seems like a great starting point. But really, I don't know. I know the software and I can picture how it's used, but I wouldn't know the first thing about starting to make a song. Realistically, it's something that I think you can, like, because it's not like I care about doing it successfully, right? It would just be something that I want to try doing. I don't care about releasing it. I feel like there's surely a bunch of helpful YouTube videos about it. Surely. So you get the software, but then I don't know how licensing even works for like how you get the beats. Do you have to pay to buy a music pack? Like I have no concept of how any of it works. So I feel like it's probably not that inaccessible. It's something that I think you can figure out with the right amount of research. But yes, my beginning step was just asking a friend like, hey, can we try doing this? I want to give it a shot. Seems like a thing I would find fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Eventually.
A lot of hobbies, it's just you dip your toes in and then you realize, oh wow, like there are a lot of resources out there, for this that you didn't even think about, right? Or the level of like the community that can like provide those things for you. That was me with board games. Like I had no idea how many games. I had no idea there was like 1,000+ board games or whatever. Like I was like, oh, there's Monopoly and shit, right? But
yeah. When did you stop playing then?
I started playing. Oh God. I think I started seriously, quote unquote, seriously playing maybe like 2016. Like my introduction to it was a game called Forbidden Island, and that was I bought that at Otakon. That was like 2012, 2011, like a long time ago.
Yeah, that is a while ago.
Right. And then that's how I discovered, there's like more games that are more complex, and then that, and then people started giving me games as gifts because they knew I liked games, and then that sparked the okay, now I'm collecting, and I'm a big collector. I love collecting shit, so it like worked hand in hand. I'm like, oh, I can collect these and try new things, and I can play them, and it just kind of I just went down a fucking black hole from there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
it's cool. That's something like a hobby that you stuck to for a really long time. Though it's awesome. Like I don't know. I just play a lot of video games, man. Just be out there playing a lot of video games.
So on that note, then, so for video games, very basic question, but what are like your top 3?
So I really had to come to terms with myself in the last 12 months and accept the fact that even though I say my favorite game is Deadly Premonition, it's actually Doom 1993. The first Doom.
Okay.
I love it so much. I think it's incredible, and that's the game that I would play forever if given the option. Big fan. Deadly Premonition has been knocked to number 2, and I just need to reckon with this change in identity that I'm going through right now.
Sure.
If you don't know Deadly Premonition, it is pretty much a cult classic. It either got 0 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. From Swery.
I've heard it described as like Twin Peaksy, right? Is that an accurate?
Very Twin Peaksy.
Yeah. I've heard of it. I want to play it. I just haven't played it yet.
It's wonderful. Yeah, definitely highly recommend it. And well, no, I don't though. That's the problem. Is I don't recommend it to everybody because it's terrible. Like the gameplay is not good. And there are definitely like conflicting views about if the game is well written or not. And I argue that it is. It's just that the characters are all very bizarre, which I think is Twin Peaksy, right? That's what's Twin Peaksy about it.
Sure.
It's a murder mystery that is just bonkers, unpredictable, and you get so engrossed in who all these bizarre people in this weird town are and which one of them did it, and it's very hard to guess. I'm making some friends play through it right now, and it's a very good, weird time. And I put it up there just because like I'm so enthusiastic about the way that story unfolds. It's so much fun. And outside of that, I'm very partial to just like Batman Arkham Asylum. I feel like that's a basic pick. I just love that game.
Okay.
Pretty much any Pokemon, but Pokemon Yellow is the one that I pick for nostalgia reasons.
Sure.
I love Banjo-Kazooie. I'm a big fan of the original Wasteland. And then most of the spin-offs of that, like up until Fallout 3 and New Vegas, I love all of those. And I spent a lot of time playing Guild Wars 2 and Neverwinter before I realized that I get way too addicted to MMOs. And so now I cannot. Gotta be away from them.
Cold turkey since then?
Yeah, I can't touch them. It will ruin my life. Same as Minecraft. If I stop playing Minecraft again, I can never stop playing Minecraft. So I have to just be like, I need to accept I am not built for these, and I must stop.
As someone who has never played Minecraft, what for you is the addicting factor in it? What makes you like, I can't stop?
It's the creativity of it, really, is I come up with a thing that I want to build, and I always do it in survival mode. And then I will not finish until I built that thing. But then while I'm building the huge thing, I will get ideas for other things to build. So it's just like, you have this sandbox that you can make whatever you want and you just keep wanting to do it. I find that so hard to step away from. You're like, ooh, this thing.
What is the most elaborate thing your crowning achievement in that game? Like, I made this.
It wasn't very good, but one of the first things that I built was an underwater house, which was very difficult in survival mode because anytime you want to expand, you can drown. So that was definitely a tough one, but it was really fun. But then the one that I was the most proud of was actually a giant tree. So I had got a ton of wood, built this huge tall tree, and then I started planting other trees attached to the tree. So you just have to get a dirt block and then a sapling, and you can put a tree really anywhere as long as the dirt block is attached to something. So the tree had a bunch of actual trees growing off of it that I hadn't built. So it was like this huge natural looking house with a hollow structure on the inside. It was massive. And that is the last time that I played Minecraft because somebody somehow figured out the server and came in and burned it down.
Oh.
And I had maybe like 100 hours on that tree.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, and we don't even know who it was. Like, it was devastating. Still hurts.
Yeah, no, I feel that's like me when I lost or every time I lose game data, like I recently lost all my save data on my prized Mario Party 3 and 64 cartridge.
No.
I had to unlock all the maps again. It was horrible.
That one's kind of hard too. I feel like it's harder than
that one. You have to play through the one player mode again, and it's a hassle.
You hate to see it.
Or my Pokemon Crystal cartridge, the battery died and all that was gone. That was very painful as well.
I had a corrupted Pokemon save. It was like 200 hours in one time. Very upsetting stuff. When I was a kid, was playing through Mario Tennis on the 64, and I wasn't very good at it because I was very young. And I was one tennis match away from the final, and this kid whose name is Brayden, I know his name because this was so fundamental to me, came over and deleted my save file. I think by accident. He was like one of my mom's friend's sons, and he deleted my Mario Tennis save file. I never touched that game again. Dead to me. I was so upset.
What if it was Brayden who burned down your tree?
It probably was. I feel like he's my supervillain origin story. This kid named Brayden.
This malevolent force in your life. Every bad video game thing that's happened to you.
He's always there.
Is the result of a Brayden.
God damn him.
Yeah. Going back to Deadly Premonition, they ported that, right?
Yeah, you can play it on Switch. Yeah, that's the director's cut, which has some extra content and supposedly like makes things, I would actually say, a little bit more confusing, funnily enough. The game is like almost simpler originally, but yeah, it runs pretty well. Like there's issues with the old PC port that like it runs like absolute garbage, whereas the director's cut runs a bit better. It also makes the combat easier because supposedly Swery didn't even want combat to be in Deadly Premonition, but they were like, no, it's a video game, it's gotta have combat. So the director's cut makes the combat easier, which works because the combat is not good. There are a lot of things in Deadly Premonition are not good. Love it to bits though.
Is the sequel any good?
So the first hour of the sequel, in my opinion, is absolutely terrible, and then beyond that, perfection. Brilliant. I haven't finished it yet though. But it's just the things they do in those games, just there's so many bizarre choices that I feel like other games just won't even consider. I don't know what their pitch rooms look like or what their writers' rooms look like, but just incredible. So bizarre.
Is there one, or should I just not know anything going? I was going to say, is there one like little thing you can, an example of like, this is something about the game that is just you love about it, or is it best just go into a completely
I could, but I feel like anything that I would describe would not come across in a way that's as interesting as it was when watching it. Like there was this one part in Deadly Premonition 2 where I think I like cried laughing because, and again, this isn't going to sound like anything when I describe it, but you go to this really bizarre shop and just for some reason in a dialogue interaction, the camera repeatedly cuts to this figure of a crocodile wearing a hat that nobody addresses, and it'll get closer and closer to it and then cut away from it and then cut in for no reason. Nobody references it at any point whatsoever. You're just looking at this figurine of a crocodile in a hat very dramatically. I was like, my God, just nobody else directs video games this way. I don't know why we're doing this, and I love it because it's not even implied as a joke. It just happens.
Yeah. And it's not a glitch. It was purely intended that way.
Yes. So it's all stuff like that that's really surprising and just very strange. And I don't know. I love the creativity.
Interesting.
Yeah. But like I said, you got to experience it to understand.
No, it's one of those games, the reputation alone, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for. Like, I haven't even seen Twin Peaks, right? But that's the thing where I'm like, I should watch it at some point, the bizarre nature of it.
It's funny, like we've had this conversation where we've both been like, yeah, like Twin Peaks. And people always say that to me when I bring up Deadly Premonition, or I offer that up. And it's funny that we both know what that is despite not seeing it. Like I understand tonally what Twin Peaks is. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
But we get what it means.
As soon as someone says it's like that, I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
Got it.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thank you very much for shooting the shit.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before we finish up, is where can people find you?
First, I would like to apologize because my Alexa went off halfway through this. So it'll probably pick that up on my microphone, but maybe it didn't on Discord. Apologies for that.
Okay.
Second, you can find me on the internet pretty much everywhere at Charizard. It is my name in the middle of Charizard. Nobody knows how to spell it. That's okay. But I don't know. I do all types of content creation. I have a bunch of podcasts. I do a lot of charity streams, and that's it.
Nice. I guess we could both plug God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, check that out when it comes out.
Yeah, which we are both involved in some capacity. An unknown date, right? But yeah, check that out whenever that comes out.
Who knows?
But anyway.
Are you even allowed to talk about which character you are?
Oh yeah, I am Ratatoskr. Okay. Yes, I was allowed to say that much.
Yes,
but not much else beyond that.
Okay, I will also not comment other than to say confirmed. Yes,
confirmed. Yes. Okay, good. I'm glad to know I'm not replaced. All right, thank you.
Cool. Bye.